Today I'm going to be reviewing the life and times of Socrates and in particular his impact on teaching methodology. I looked at his work and related it to modern day teaching methodology in terms of how we use a lot of questioning. As a teacher and educator myself, I've used a lot of questioning to help students come to the conclusion of what they're studying. So we're going to be analyzing how that impacted education, not just at his time, where it was actually seen in a negative light, but how it's impacted education over time. Socrates has had a major impact on how we carry out our modern day teaching methodology. One of the things that a lot of teachers use without even thinking about it is the Socratic method, where they ask students leading questions and guide them to the conclusion based on the types of questions they're asking them. The interesting thing with his background is that Socrates was born in ancient Greece, where it was the high times or the times when education and learning and understanding and argument and debate was a major thing. So he was born in 470 BC in ancient Athens, and he ended up being married with two sons, and he taught in the typical Areopagus, where it was an open space and young people came out to listen to some of the thinkers of the day. Interesting thing is that he never wrote a book. One of his most famous students, Plato, is the one who gives us most of the information about Socrates. And then he was sentenced to death and given an option by his followers to actually escape, but he thought that it was more noble and better for him to die than out of the sentence than to escape and die off in exile. His main focus was that he had revolutionized and changed the way people thought, and that seemed very important to him. Socratic method is also related to one very famous person called Jesus Christ. Socrates said simply, I cannot teach anybody anything, I can only make them think. Now, Jesus Christ, of course, didn't approach it that way. He aimed to teach us things that were valuable for our lives. But the similarities extend to how Jesus Christ also used a lot of questions. He asked his disciples a lot of questions. And a lot of times he also asked the Pharisees a lot of questions because he knew their motives were not right. Jesus used the same method very effectively. So in my view as a Christian, there's something godly about this method. There's something right about it. But the other similarity is that the charges against them and their trials and their executions were very similar. Both were charged for deceiving and misdirecting people, and were charged for making claims that were not right for the time, and both were sentenced to death. So similarities that are very significant that lead us to believe there was something right about what they were doing. In the application, I see it applied a lot in higher education, in a lot of centers of learning, especially in colleges and universities. And as a teacher, I've used it in high school, as well as teaching other elementary grades, and also teaching adults. The modern Socratic method is similar to what it was then. It's just that we don't rely on it as a standalone. So it's simply giving a question that leads to an answer that's undefined at the time, and then helping the student work their way through to the conclusion. The important thing is that we have to enhance the discussion and encourage it, but we have to also give lecture. The teacher is still the expert in the room, and therefore giving discussion without lecture, it excludes the expert. And when you exclude the expert, you may lead students astray. So they're not intended to come to their own independent conclusions, but rather to come to a guided conclusion of what is meant and intended. That sums up our analysis of Socrates and his education methodology and how it's impacted our teaching today. Thank you very much.